Hello everyone, my name is Reggie. Welcome to my channel. Today I'll be sharing with you my January wrap-up. If you're new here, you should hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to me. Also, I post new bookish videos every week, so if you're interested on when I post those new videos, definitely hit that bell dude as well. That way you don't miss any of the good bookish fun. I read only 5 books in the month of January, which is not super great for me personally. But, you know, it's not about the quantity of books you read, it's about the quality of books you read. However, the quality of the books I read in the month of January, not necessarily the highest. So first off, we're going to start with my least favorite book, because I like ranking my wrap-ups from least favorite to most favorite. That way I end up on a positive note. So the first book on my list is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. I give this a 1.5 stars. This is a kind of Breakfast Club-esque story. Starts off with these 5 kids who are in various positions in the school, don't really have that much of a connection. However, they are, you know, in detention on the same day, and one of the kids dies, and they think it's a murder, and the other 4 kids are the main suspects. So it goes through trying to figure out which one of them did it, which one of them is lying, essentially. What sucks about this book is it uses the concept of a person who's LGBTQIA+, and it uses the idea of a person who is depressed as plot devices, twists, reveals, etc. in a very problematic and damaging way. It also doesn't delve into those issues or explore those characterizations. It's super damaging, super hurtful, super problematic. The book is not surprising. It felt like very much like a contemporary, which is not necessarily like a bad thing, but it definitely didn't feel like a mystery or a thriller. Next up, I read Stalking Jack the Ripper by Karen Mascalano. Also didn't like this book. Essentially, this is the story of a girl who lives in like the 18th century, 1800s, not 18th century, in London at the time of Jack the Ripper, and it tells the story of her being like super interested in cadavers and mysteries and surgery and doctors and blood and gore and like all those things that girls of the time should not be interested in. It's super boring, first of all, just like a really slow-paced book, and doesn't feel like a mystery or thriller at all. The twist or the reveal or the ending, whatever, super predictable, like the most predictable thing I've read in quite a long time, and it made me very frustrated that our protagonist is supposedly so smart, but was just so oblivious to what was happening. The character had a lot of moments where she's like, yeah, that's not right, girls shouldn't be treated this way, blah, 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 blah. And it was great, those moments, but there are also other moments where she was forced to be in contact with other girls who are growing up in this time, living in this time, and are interested in finding a spouse or wearing dresses or this or that or whatever, and she constantly is putting them down for that and being like, how dare they, essentially, or like, why are they interested in this? And like, it's really upsetting that she's bashing them and the way they think, and who they are in this time period especially is so focused on that. And yeah, it'd be nice if they could look outside of their box, but also they should still be able to be interested in what they want, because a lot of them seem to be genuinely interested in this stuff, and she's continually bashing them and putting them down, and I can't in good conscience be okay with like that kind of girl hate. I didn't like it, even if it's subconscious and unintentional. I didn't like the ideas it promoted, and on top of this being not very mystery thriller and not very like interesting, kind of boring, I just really couldn't get on board with this book. The sequel I will be reading just because it's nominated for the YA Booktube Awards, and I do have to read it for that. However, if it weren't for that, I would have DNF'd this book and I wouldn't be continuing on with the series. I ended up giving this a 2 stars. Next up, I finally finished My True Love Gave to Me 12 Holiday Stories. This is a collection of short stories. It's got stories from a lot of different authors. It's edited by Stephanie Perkins. There's some stories that I really loved. There was way more bad than good, so I gave this a 2 stars overall. I ended up unhauling this book. I did own it, and I just wasn't interested in rereading it. I didn't think this was a book I would revisit during the holiday seasons, and I don't really think it's much of note. Next up, I read I Darken by Kirsten White. This is another book I had to read for the YA Booktube Awards. I think I felt pressured to read this book quickly, and I also wasn't necessarily looking forward to reading this book. I think I could have liked it more under different circumstances, but as it is, I was just not interested in the characters. I was not interested in the story plot. I was pretty bored. I had to reread a lot of parts of it because I just kept spacing out. But as it stands, I don't really hate this book. I just don't love it. I gave it a 3 stars. The last book I read in the month of January is my favorite book that I read in the month of January, and is Love, Hate, and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed. This is the story of an Indian American Muslim teenager. She is in high school. She's super interested in film and photography and movie making, and she is just living her life. It deals a lot with Islamic phobia and her relationships with her parents, trying to kind of find love. However, one of the big components of the story is that at the time the story is taking place and all of these things are happening in our main character's life, there is a terrorist attack in her town. The person who is a suspect of committing the terrorist attack shares a last name with our protagonist. So she goes through some pretty intense situations because of this. I liked the character. I really liked her relationships, and her characterization felt really realistic. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed just the representation as a whole and the kind of inclusion of Islamophobia. However, I felt like the first half felt more contemporary and just her love story and trying to figure out herself, and the second half felt more of just Islamophobia, and it didn't feel like the two parts mixed in very well. Also, there was a lot of parts we were reading from the terrorist's point of view and not knowing who he is or anything about him other than these segments, and just the way they were placed in the story felt kind of disjointed. So a lot of these parts of the story felt disjointed for me. I did read an arc of this, so some of these things, there could have been like transitions that were added to make it flow a little better in the final copy. I don't know. Overall though, it was really good. This is a debut. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 3.75, 4 stars. I think I'll stick with the 4 stars. It's kind of in between there. Like I said, had some disjointed moments. Overall, really loved everything it was trying to do and everything it did do, more than the parts that just didn't feel 100% there for me. You can't knock it for everything it did right, and all of its representation and all of the wonderful story that it was in general. And I really, like I said, think the character's voice was very authentic to youth and teenagers. So I really liked that. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of January. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you read any of these books, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them. You should also give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
Baby, I've been here.